Today's video is all about the sword tree, and it is a tier list video, so let's get right into it. First up, we have the Broadsword. Alright, the Broadsword has Mighty Blow, which when you increase your charges, you increase damage. Now, this can interrupt spell casting. It deals a huge chunk of damage for a one-handed weapon. Here's what the spell looks like. You just jump and do a big hit. Now, I didn't have any charges there, so obviously it didn't do any hits, but this video is more about the tier list, not showing off the abilities, so let's get right into it. You can see there are multiple different categories because different weapons fill different niches in Albion Online, and we're going to talk about all of them. Getting started here, the Broadsword for solo PvE, that is like open world mobs, solo dungeons, stuff like that. We are putting it at a, well, it kind of works in between and worth using, and the reason why is that swords, they deal an okay amount of damage, an okay amount of AoE damage. Swords give you passive run speed when you have multiple charges. However, you have to expend those charges with this weapon in order to deal big damage. So your boss kill time is kind of slow. Killing open world mobs, it's a little bit slower than other weapons, even other swords. So for the Broadsword, it's kind of in between, worth using and kind of works. It's not really the worst, but it's not really the best either. Group PvE, unless you're the tank, like, this isn't really a tanking weapon in the first place. It has no AoE, it's not big on DPS, not even single target DPS. Get this crap out of my group dungeons. If you have this and you're trying to do a group dungeon, you're really holding the party back, okay? Solo PvP, though, oh man, this thing is dangerous. This thing is constantly complained about on forums, that it is broken, it does too much damage, too much utility, it is an absolute monster to fight against in corrupted dungeons. This thing is absolute slaps. For group PvP, you're not really doing anything for your Zerg versus Zerg. If you are by yourself in a Zerg, it's pretty cool. You know, you're going to kill people and you're going to be able to run away from them, but if you are participating actively as a whole for group PvP, then you're not really doing much with the sword, sorry to say. For skinning mobs and for arenas, for skinning mobs, well, you can obviously skin mobs with it, but it doesn't really bring any AoE or anything to the table, so I'd say it's pretty crappy. For arenas, it's actually really good. I'd say it's worth using in arenas. You're pretty strong, you're a strong contender, hard to 1v1, absolute great weapon to use. Let's move on to the next sword. The Claymore is just a two-handed, much stronger, much better version of the Broadsword. So it has the charge ability, which gives you immunity to incoming damage, and crowd control and debuffs for 1 whole second. It stuns the enemy upon impact. It deals a tremendous amount of damage when you have multiple charges. It looks like this, and you can cast it from a much larger range than the Broadsword. So, where does this put it on the tier list, you may ask? Well, it's kind of the same thing for PvE. Yeah, you can hit bosses a little bit harder, so we can inch it up just a tiny bit to there maybe, but still, it really sucks for PvE. It's not something you want to bring to a group either. You're not really doing anything for the group. Solo PvP, oh boy, this thing dominates. If in a 1v1, this is the most fearsome of all weapons to ever go against. According to data aggregate websites, the top highest ranked players, they all tell you that Claymore is the ultimate in ultimate of 1v1 weapons. This thing should go even higher, further beyond, way up here, but I didn't make a tier for that. Through all weapons, not just the sword, okay? So, the #1 solo PvP weapon in the entire game, Claymore, here it is, the King of Kings. Alright, for group PvP, if you're by yourself, yeah, you're gonna kill people and be highly mobile, but if you're actually part of a whole, you're not really contributing much, but because it's so good in 1v1s that you might be able to do a little bit more than that Broadsword guy, so we're gonna say it kind of works. For arenas, it's decent in arenas, very scary in arenas. For skinning, again, it's not really an AoE weapon, so you're not really getting much out of it there. The Dual Swords is probably one of the most mobile weapons in the entire game with a very short cooldown. Basically, it allows you to jump forward and deal a good amount of damage based on how many charges you have, but it also increases your attack speed, your damage for 5 seconds. So, here's an auto attack. It dealt 101 damage. With the E, we now deal 152. So it's a huge boost, and we're being able to swing very quickly. This combines with different builds into different passives and different gear to give you tremendous move speed as well. So, tier list wise, I'm not going to sit here and educate you on dual swords builds. Let's just get into it. Okay, because it has an AoE attack, it has the best movement speed in the game. It's one of the better fame farm weapons in the sword tree. Out of all the weapons, though, you're still more better off farming combat fame credits for, you know, just efficiency, right? But that AoE, and your auto attack damage makes it much faster at clearing dungeons and much faster at clearing solo world mobs. For groups, again, you're not really contributing anything to the group. That one AoE hit that you have on E, and of course the AoE cleave on Q. There's just better weapons for PvE in general. Just don't bring swords to PvE. Solo PvP, you're going to be able to chase people, you're going to be able to hurt them, you're going to be able to run away from them. It's a very good weapon for that, okay? For actual Zerg versus Zergs, you're not really contributing anything. I guess you can chase down people, maybe a little bit. But if you're by yourself in a Zerg, it's amazing. You can run into people, kill them, run the hell out of there. You're very hard to chase and lock down. Very, very good stuff. We'll put it about there. I think the Carving Sword is actually slightly better, even though it has a longer cooldown. It's just better for killing in general. We'll get to that one in a bit. For skinning mobs, it works. It's worth using. You can skin mobs with this. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, you should never use a melee weapon. You should always use ranged for skinning mobs. But in the swords category, it's a decent skinner weapon. For arenas, it's okay. There's better swords in arena, but I would say you'd be fine using it. The Clarent Blade is a decent weapon. It does a little bit more damage than the Broadsword. It's much more expensive, though. It has some utility, though. At 1 charge, it slows. 2 charges, it silences. Not for very long to really mean anything. And 3 charges deals additional damage. Still, though, it's its own little thing. It looks pretty cool. Here's what the skill looks like. You just kind of shoot a little shockwave out. It's kind of cheap looking, but we're not really judging things on their looks today. We're judging them on their usefulness. So for PvE, this is probably it's one of the better swords to use. That and Carving Sword, it's up there. Now, as far as all the weapons, you know, just swords in general really suck for fame farming. But for swords, if you have to use a sword for fame farming, it's pretty damn good because of that AoE. It's also high damage. It's easy to stack up against mobs. For group PvE, again, get your swords out of here. You're just better. Like, if you had to bring a sword to a group, I guess it kind of works, but otherwise, swords are not meant for PvE at all. Just get them out of here. Solo PvP, it's okay. Like, it kind of works. I would say you could get away with using it because it's a sword. People have a lot of trouble running from swords, and you technically could semi-fight from range. You do have to get close to get charges, though. But you can still, you know, just shoot it with no charges. You won't deal nearly as much damage to be worth it over ranged weapons anyway. But you can still make plays with this thing. Okay, group PvP, you know, it kind of works because of the damage that you can deal potentially with it and the line. But there's just way better swords for group PvP in general. For skinning, it's okay. It's all right. Generally, line attacks aren't really the best in skinning because they tend to surround you. So circular attacks are way better. Hence the double swords, but it's okay. And then for arenas, I've only seen one guy ever slay with this weapon, and he didn't really score that high anyway. The Carving Sword is one of the better swords in the sword tree. It's also one of the coolest. It's just a big, hunkin' mega turbo Chad weapon, okay? So what it does is the more charges you have, the more damage resistance you melt off a player. So it's going to do the same damage regardless of charge, which means it has more playability. It does a big dash, it's pretty fast, it deals a decent chunk of damage, but that armor resistance melting, especially at 3 charges, makes all of your other abilities and anyone else you're with deal a tremendously high amount of damage to the targets. This weapon absolutely slaps, and let's go ahead and show why. Okay, so for mob clearing, I would say it is absolutely worth using in PvE because of the fact that you're mobile, it's a line attack, it moves you forward, it just makes clearing dungeons quick. It's not as quick as the dual swords, but it's really, really nice. It's a good alternative, okay? For group PvE, you know what, the armor shred alone makes it worth bringing if you have lots of AoE, even though you have to build it up first. There's better weapons for armor shred, but the armor shred on the Carving Sword is very high. It's not the highest, but it's very high. It's an AoE, and you deal good damage. It's nice to have. I wouldn't be mad if there was one in my group, as long as the group has good AoE spells. Solo PvP, you are hypermobile, you deal tons of damage, you melt people's armor away, they can't defend against you, you can escape. It's the same thing as the dual sword. It's less mobile technically than the dual swords, but it is so much more killing potential. Now I know the Claymore is the king of solo PvP. Like I said, the Claymore would be up there, but the the carving sword, super good for group PvP. If you're by yourself, this is again, this weapon's devastating. Okay, you run in, you kill a guy, you get the hell out of there. That's what swords are really good at. If you're in a dedicated ZVZ, just cleaving the front line's armor off with this it's good, but you're probably gonna die, so I have to knock it down a notch to worth using. There are very well-known people in ZVZs that rock this weapon, and the enemy teams that they fight against have them on like a list of, oh crap, we need to do something about this guy, get him out of our front lines. For skinning purposes, it's really good at killing skinning mobs because it lowers their armor, kills them very quickly. It deals good damage too. It's also mobile if you need to get away, like if you're getting ganked as you skin. It's an okay weapon. It's not the best, but it's decent. For arenas, this thing also slaps because of that armor shred. You shred a target of armor, that basically puts a target on their back for your entire team to just collapse on them and kill them very quickly. So for arenas, very good. The Galatine pair is the highest damage AoE sword out of all the swords and is mostly meant for Zerg versus Zergs. It does a tremendous amount of large AoE damage. It also reduces max HP, so it's part of one of those frontline dive groups, or you can also dive backlines with it. Here's what the AoE looks like. It takes a little bit of time, but it's kind of a weird, interesting pattern. That's something that's easily going to be dodged. I didn't do it with any charges, so it didn't deal that much damage, but you can see from the tooltip, it really racks up the damage big time. So where does that make it fall on the tier list? Okay, so for the Galatine pair, because of the cooldown and the AoE, it's okay. It's okay, you know, kind of works. Swords in general aren't really great for PvE, like I said. You're better off with those other swords that I mentioned earlier in the video. For group PvE, even though you have a devastatingly large AoE attack, it's not consistently large AoE attacks. I guess it kind of works. You know, I wouldn't want one in my group. I'd rather have a carving sword, just so everyone else deals way more damage. Let's be honest. Solo PvP, you can kill people with it. It's a little hard, though, because they're going to be very wary of your E-spell and just kind of avoid it or pump their defensives. This weapon is best used as a sneak attack, which I'm going to get into right now, the group PvP. This is another one of those mandatory ZVZ weapons where you absolutely have these guys that run in and they just start nuking. These are like little nuke deployers, okay? It's not the strongest AoE in the game, but it does melt maximum HP. If we look at the game's tooltip here, we can see that it does melt current and max of 6% for 7 seconds. Not as much as Realm Breaker, but it does add with Realm Breaker. So that is really freaking cool. But other group PvP activities, like if you're by yourself, you can maybe nuke down some boys, but maybe dive a faction outpost or something. Other than that, for skinning, I guess it kind of works for skinning, but the fact that you have to channel it, you know, and then stab the swords in the ground, it's just wasted frames. Other swords just simply do it better. I've never seen anyone really get a good score with these in arenas. So I'm sure there's a guy out there that's like really good at them, but arenas are just a whole different like kind of meta. So I guess it kind of works, but I've never seen it actually like super succeed. And finally, we have the Kingmaker, probably one of the coolest weapons in all of Albion. It's a super glowy, big-ass sword, bigger than, like, most people. Okay, its ability is the Majestic Smash, which does more damage the more charges you have. It throws the enemies in the air, and it's a little weird to aim it, but it's interesting, that's for sure. So yeah, you swing and then you slam, and the damage is, it has really high tooltip damage, but in practice, the damage is not nearly as much as the other swords. I don't know if that's a bug or what the heck is going on with that. But anyway, throwing it into the tier list, okay. The E, it kind of works for mob farming. Like, you could dismount on an open world mob and slam them with the E with your 3 charges that you can get really quickly. Does an okay amount of damage, but it just doesn't feel good. Just solo PvE for swords is just not good in general. Group PvE, again, you don't bring anything to the group, get it out of here. Solo PvP, it kind of works, but it's a really expensive sword, and it's not as good as the other PvP swords, so I'm putting it down here. Group PvP, I guess knocking people in the air might work. I've honestly never seen these in Zerg versus Zergs. I know they exist. I'm sure they do. There's got to be a guy out there that's like, I'm the cool swordsman guy. Yeah, but I've looked everywhere and I've seen no instances of this really being used. And damage is okay, but you got way better options through and through. For skinning, you got better options. For arena, I've never seen anyone pull this weapon off in arena. I might just put it down here, but I mean, it kind of works. Okay, it just kind of works. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for the the sword tier list. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I read every single comment, and make sure to like the video. And make sure you're subscribed because I make videos every single day on this channel. Every day, new video. So if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. The algorithm won't always give you my videos to watch. But if you're subscribed, you won't miss them. With that said, if you want to financially help me out, click the thanks button down below. Leave a monetary donation. Everyone can see it, and they'll think you're a really cool guy for doing so. Also, if you want to become a channel member, it's $5 a month. Click the join button down below. It's like being subscribed on Twitch, but it's on YouTube, and YouTube is better. So you get access to private, more personal videos. You can see a playlist of those videos in the pinned comment. Go ahead and check those out if one of those videos interests you, like a corrupted dungeon build that I don't want the public to know about, but I don't mind sharing with my supporters, so it's a private video for them only. Also, how to become a YouTuber. I basically made it for myself in case I have amnesia and forget who I am one day. I can still continue to make videos. Yay! So I know you or someone that you know wants to also be a YouTuber, so you could pay for the channel membership, and then next time they're over at your house or whatever, you can show them the video, and they'll be like, oh, cool, now I can be a YouTuber. Wow. That saved me years and years of research in 45 minutes. Anyway, guys, I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Take care.